in different families across board, there's always one woman or the other who has had fibroids. But fibroids are the smallest thing that can cause a woman to even have big belly. Hi, welcome to a new episode of Shades of Us. I am Ramat. Today, I am going to talk about something I have titled Big Belly, Don't Lie. So before I get into it, I used to be this really skinny girl. I was suffering then, but yeah, I was very, very skinny. And then I began to add weight, and I was happy that I added weight because when I was skinny, I was like a ruler. And so I always said, well, adding weight made me a bit curvy, so I was happy. And so I've always told people, I'm very, very okay with the fact that I added weight and I'm good with it. But today I want to talk about one aspect of my weight that I am sensitive about, and it is my belly. So I need to stand up for you to see my belly. Another place I am very sensitive about is my upper arm. You can see it right now and it's like jiggle, jiggle, jiggle and whatnot. So for the longest time, I wasn't worried about it. But then on social media, with different people in conversation even, I noticed that a lot of people always mentioned how, people's belly, they didn't like people with big belly. They didn't care about people with big belly. And I was like, what is this all about? But I let it slide, I think one time some guy came on my Facebook and said the most hurtful thing that he could. He was like, oh, look at your belly like Michelin tire. Like, I'm not even joking. He said that. And I was like, what? But then I looked at him, should I eviscerate him? But then I just said, you know what, just let it slide. And I actually, for the first time, usually I will go to bat with this person, but I just let it go. I think it hurt me because I was sensitive about my belly. This is because I was a girl who had flat belly. I could show you pictures of it and my belly was really flat and whatnot. But when I was 15 or thereabout, I went for a medical test. And this is the first time I'm ever going to say it away from my friends and family. But I think it's important that I share this information. But I was diagnosed with fibroids as early as 15. So, as the fibroids were there, they were small, and I had a flat belly. And I was like, baby girl, flat belly, whatnot. I was happy with myself. And then the fibroids started to grow. They were growing and growing and growing. And as they grew, they began to push my belly out. At first, I wasn't even really bothered about it. Yes, there was pain and whatnot, but I was okay because, I could take drugs and things like that. But then they grew bigger and bigger and even bigger to the point that I looked like I was 5 months pregnant. At this point, my belly had become big. The fibroids were pressing on all of my organs. Life was hellish. My period was the worst. Everything was just really bad. And it felt like all the food, whatever I was eating and, was just going into my belly. And so it wasn't the best time to be alive. And then I went over to one of my friend's house and we're just talking and I told him, oh, I have fibroids. And he was like, oh, let me check. He's a gynecologist. I was like, let me check. And then he checks, just a regular, palpitating my belly. And he tells me, you need to get these fibroids out immediately. And I was like, why? What's going on? I'm fine. He said, you may look fine, but one of these days you'll just be walking on the road and you would faint or you would lose consciousness or something would happen to you. And I, for the first time, had that understanding of the urgency that I needed to take the fibroids out. So after consulting with other doctors and back and forth in 2017, we finally agreed that in 2018, I was going to take the fibroids out. So 2018, February, I went to surgery and I had the fibroids that were big. Now, my father insisted I not show those pictures. My doctor friends said I shouldn't show the pictures, and I understand it is gory. If you see how big they were, you will understand how problematic that they were for me. But the one part that I would disobey them is to talk about it, because a lot of women don't talk about the things that happen to them, especially when it comes to reproductive health issues. And so I want to talk about it, and I want other women to be able to open up, because this is very common, especially among African women, women of African descent and the like. So it's a very common thing. But I don't want to be too serious about this. I want to come back to my belly, right? So after taking out the fibroids, it was good, right? I was okay for a bit. Some physiological changes. So it just felt like the food I was eating wasn't going to, the fibroids anymore. So they distributed. One place is to my jiggly arm, and then my belly was already stretched out. So I looked at it and I said, okay, you know what? There are options. I could, begin to exercise crazy, be a, exercise buff to get back that flat belly. But I had gone through a lot. And if you know it, this is just 3 years after surgery. And the fibroids are back. So even if I do decide to, do, the push-ups and what have you for my belly and whatnot, it's just, postponing the due date of another big belly. And it's important that I talk about this, because some people do not understand what other people are going through, especially what women are going through. So you want a flat belly because of the aesthetics of it. But a lot of women are dealing with fibroids. Like, it is so commonplace. In my family, there's been people who has had fibroids. There's been other kinds of growths in my family. In different families across board, there's always one woman or the other who has had fibroids. But fibroids are the smallest thing that can cause a woman to even have big belly. So I was reading recently about PCOS, or as the real full name is, polycystic ovary syndrome. I'm going to do an episode about it completely, but this thing makes women, in some cases, put on weight because it just messes with your entire reproductive system, and then it messes with your hormones, and so it's just really horrible. So I read the story of this girl on Zikoko Mag, and if you don't read Zikoko Mag, I think you should go and check it out. She talked about PCOS and how it affected her weight. And trust me, your belly will get big, your body will get big, right? And women, as we know, the older you get, there's a possibility that you put on weight. And some of it may be hormonal. Some of it may be, yes, eating. I love food. I can't say all of it is because I had a fibroid or whatnot. I love food. So yes, I gained weight because I eat food, right? But then there are other underlying conditions that may make people to put on weight, especially in their middle region, which is their belly. Now, let me go to the next thing that can make people, have that big belly that you're talking about, or put on weight, and it is taking some kind of drugs. I want to talk about some modern contraceptives. Women who use hormonal modern contraceptives, depending on the woman, depending on her body type. Like, I have the propensity to be big, so I cannot use hormonal contraceptives. So there are women who are like that too, who their DNA is wired that, is that propensity for us to be big. So if they use hormonal contraceptives, they begin to put on weight, and a lot of that weight goes to either your upper arm, right, your thighs, or your belly. If that weight is going to your thighs, it's great, because you become curvy, you become hipcious. But then when it goes to your upper arm, it's like, hey, Christian mother. Or you go and then you have to your belly and they're like, oh, Michelin tire. I wish the guy who actually said that to me can watch this and understand that just because you think the flat belly is a sensible thing, it may not always be practical, health-wise, for the woman. Another thing that makes women have big bellies, which is the obvious thing, is pregnancy. Now, for 9 months, your belly steadily begins to grow outwards as your child gets bigger in your belly. So your skin begins to stretch and stretch to accommodate this child that you're carrying. So it begins to stretch and stretch and stretch until 9 months. There are some pregnancies that I have seen that is so big, like from under the breast like this, to the point that the person doesn't even see their legs anymore, their feet anymore. That's how big they get during pregnancy. So imagine how much of your skin is stretching out to accommodate life, right? And then this woman decides, okay, let me give birth to my baby. And people want her to snap back in 2 weeks. You dey craze. Do you understand that it took 9 months for this woman to have her belly expand to that point, and then you want her to snap back? Some women are able to, with the help of surgery, yes. Some women are able to use exercise, yes. There are some African traditions that we have, the pressing of the belly during pregnancy, after pregnancy, I mean, that can help women to shrink their bellies. Even the act of breastfeeding, helps the belly to contract. But then to go back to the original position which it was, it becomes extremely hard. And people want women to go back to that flat belly. Some women say that after giving birth, that apart from, what happens in the vagina if they're having a vaginal birth, but that what happens to the belly itself. I didn't know how bad it was until I watched this lady do her full pregnancy period video, and there were stretch marks all over her belly because of how big it got. And so when she gave birth, all of that stretch mark became like, how skin is folded if you put it in water. If you maybe put your hand in water for a long time, if you know how your skin gets folded, that's how her belly contracted. And it stays like that for a while. And so many women even have sensitivity, even with their husbands, because they are like, oh, my belly looks really horrible, because it will look horrible. It will look really, really, really horrible. And so when all of this happens and you now insist that women should, they should have flat bellies and whatnot, it becomes such a problematic thing. But if you do not think yourself beautiful, if you do not think yourself worthy, if you do not respect yourself enough to say, oh, I care about myself and my health, you will constantly want to go and do things to improve yourself for a group of people that, like I said, do not matter.